It's one of the things like I've enjoyed. Now, the other kind of like thing that I had not planned on talking about this, and the fact that like, hey, we spoke about the interview with Jenny Stegmeyer, is my pre-order for the final expansion for Scythe came in. This literally came in yesterday. It's super cool. What's really funny is like this goes to show you like how all in I'm in on this game. So part of the problem with I was getting everything for Scythe is it's like cool. I had the original box, which you saw, and which I have actually out in the living room. And I was like, cool. If it's the original game, I started getting all these like the extra, like the cool looking resources and the little dial cards and all that. And I started to realize like, hey, as I'm putting this into this box, like this box is getting a bit full. And then of course they came out with the first expansion in a little small box, and I'm like, all right, cool, whatever, this and that. I was kind of sort of able to fit it in the original box. Then of course they came out with the second expansion in another little like small box. This shit didn't go into the original box. That was like, no. And then, of course, you had this guy that now had to fit into that box. What's really cool, and I have to give it to Jamie Stegmeyer, he actually released a Scythe Legendary box. So if you look at this thing, it is a good like I want to say like twice the size of the original box. The beautiful thing is this right here. Now, granted, I do not have an organizer in this yet. That's like my last thing that I need to get. Because if you look real close, like you can see that little red gap there. This is with original game, or all three expansions in it. So it's all in this box, which is cool. What's really neat about it is the way he made that box, which I liked, is it has a new, if you saw the new cover on it, it says Legendary Edition. That top cover is the same size as the original cover from the original Scythe. So if you want, you can actually remove that one and put the original cover with the original artwork on the top. So that's really cool. But the only kind of like weird thing is if you do that, the side artwork doesn't match up. That's right. The only like if there was that kind of stinks. Is the side artwork doesn't match up. But it's really cool that you can like you have this like new box that fits everything into it. And like I said, that's everything that I have. To the point where I may have to go in there because I do have the original components that came in plus the upgraded components in there. So like I could probably get a tiny little more space where it might actually close completely.
Yeah, it's crazy because I was thinking when you were showing those boxes, I was like, man, back in the day, people really liked having the boxes from their video games, whether it was console or for computers. And they'd stack it up almost like you would do books. Mm-hmm. And now everything's digital, so you don't have that anymore. But then it's like, I'm looking at that, I'm just thinking, not even the smaller expansions you've shown, just between Gloom and Scythe, I'm like, those two are huge. Yeah. I mean, you start collecting a couple of games, you need a wing, not a room. You need a wing of your house for your board games.
Well, and this is the thing that gets me. Is like at first I was like, I'll get rid of them because like there's nothing in here. But like the thing about it is the artwork on the boxes. Like I sat there and I told my wife, I'm like, when we get our own house, like in my game room, like I'm gonna put this up on a shelf as like a piece of artwork because it's like it's amazing, just the artwork that they have in these things. Like you could put this on the front, like you could put the side, like any of the actual like artwork that's on the boxes is amazing. Like I mean, even this one, the Invaders from Afar, like it's got a really cool like picture of like one of the Max things. Like even this side ones, and even this one, like the Rise of Fenris has like a cool kind of like picture with like a soldier in the front and all that. You know, it has like some of the commanders on the side there. It's so neat how some of these games, just like the old video games, like had some amazing, like you had some really bad artwork back in those days, but you also had some like really amazing artwork in some of the games.
Even back on the 2600, I remember Yar's Revenge. That artwork was great.
Dude. Yeah. Like that's one of the things. Like the last time I spoke with my brother, he actually, one of the Christmas gifts I got him 2 years ago, I want to say, was a book that was the artwork of a lot of these like game covers. And it's so, because it was like 100 and something pages of a bunch of different games, and like one of the more prominent one was like the Yar's Revenge. You know, it's just like you look at that and you're like, man, like that was so cool that they actually did that with some of those games. And that's the thing that I see with these. Like, it amazes me where if you look at some board games that some of these designers come out, you have those games that are just like the splash in the pan type of games. It comes out, people love it, they play it, and then it kind of like drizzles out. And you have designers that will do that, and they're known for they hit the splash in the pan with every game that they come out with, and they do it in such a way that they're like, you have to give these guys like, you think this stuff out, because they'll release a game, it gets all this hype, it blows up, and it becomes like the hit game to get. And just as people are starting to lose interest in it, bam, their next one comes out. Everyone's like, whoa, he did this game. And like, I've seen people that collect board games. It doesn't matter what the game is, but if it's from a specific designer, I'm getting it. Like, they didn't even know what the game is. Like, oh, he's coming out with a new game? Oh, I'm buying it. They don't care. It could be a dumpster fire in a box, and they'll still buy it. But the thing I've noticed, like, that you won't see, which happens in the video game industry, is you can have a game developer in the video game industry that'll come out with an amazing game, and 2-3 years later they'll come out with a dumpster fire of a game.
Yeah.
I have yet to really see something like that happen with a board game designer. It almost seems like they're continually improving on how they design their games. And it's unbelievable how like that happens in the board game industry and how differently it is in the video game industry. And
I wonder if it has to do with maybe the company or publisher not putting as much pressure. Maybe they still, I mean, obviously they have pressure, but maybe it's not the same as with a video game where it's like, it's got to come out. Where's the DLC? Where's this? Where's that?
Right. And that's why I think it is like, that's going to be a fun audio edit for you to like look through when I smack the mic. You hear you like boom, in the middle of your sentence. That, and I mistakenly dropped the S-bomb, but hey. Anyways, I'm sure you can edit that. No, you can't. The thing that's in, I think part of it is like the whole, like they'll have we want to release it on time and all that, but I feel like this is, I've always felt kind of like the video game industry has always been one of those, like when you have a big publisher get behind a game and they tell them, when is it going to be ready? Like, we want to announce a release date. And I mean, like, knowing programmers, they're like, well, we can have a stable version running December this year. All right, we're releasing it in December. And like, you know how it is, like the publishers are like, cool. And they just go out and they're like, guess what? The game's coming out in December. And then that's when you have the programmers like all like nervous because they're like, oh, we got to put something out.
Right.
And I kind of feel like I want to give the benefit of the doubt to No Man's Sky. I have a feeling when Sony was like, we're going to get behind you, we're going to inject money into this, like, when can it come out? I have a feeling the people at Hello Games were like, well, technically we could have it out by this date, which is the date it launched. And they're like, cool. And they went out and like, that's the release date. And I have a feeling that they just got caught up in, all right, let's see if we can put the stuff that we're talking about. And then they realized, like, oh, we're going to need more time. And the publisher's like, no, we said it's going out on this date. It's going out. Whatever you guys have, it's going out. Because if you look at No Man's Sky today, it looks today like what they showed 2 years ago or 3 years ago when they showed it off at E3. It's finally getting to that thing. But, you know, this is what runs the world, and they were like, no, we're not gonna like just dump a bunch of money into you.
And on the other hand, you have Star Citizen, which
oh my god,
it may not come out until
I think our kids, I think our kids are the ones that are finally gonna get to play Star Citizen. Like we're just gonna be sitting there. I could see you and I, old and gray, in a bed. And they're like, you know, what did you think? It's like, man, we're going to both be like, I remember when that Star Citizen game that's about to come out, man, I remember when I first kickstarted that thing 40 years ago.
I just left college and now I'm about to die.
I found the most amazing thing and I'm never going to get to play it. Like, that's a game that, like, it was one of those things. I remember when I heard it, like, on paper, this thing sounds amazing. And then I looked at it and I wanted to back it. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Like it's a very ambitious game. And I don't know if they're ever going to do it. And it's like, I laugh because every so often you get that whole article of like, no, Star Citizen's not vaporware. It's actually coming out. It's like, I don't know, bro. This still smells like vaporware to me. You know?
I think the hardest part, and this kind of goes back to maybe why tabletop games, I think it's also the community. It's like the community can wait. You'll hear people saying in tabletop games, oh yeah, it'll be out maybe a year and a half, and it's like that, not big of a deal. For gaming, it used to be like that. You know, back in the day when you got Super Mario Brothers, it's like, okay, another one's not coming out for a couple of years. It's like, oh, okay, well, we'll have to play this one. And there was no DLC back then, by the way. Yeah. So it was only recently with demos, DLCs, you know, expansions, all that, where the gaming community's gotten more impatient, where in board games you don't have that. With Star Citizen, I think the problem is that it's so much money too. Because if it was just one of their backing amounts, like, you know, the entry level one or the special one, but no, they even had like sales where you're buying these capital ships for thousands of dollars, and that's where it starts to be like, okay, it's not like I gave you $50 or $100 and now I'm wondering when this is going to come out. I've bought thousands of dollars. I have all these friends who are like, man, we're going to all play in this capital ship. I don't even have those friends anymore.
Yeah. Well, like one of the big things that like that goes to show you the whole like just difference in PC gaming or video gaming and board gaming. Like, of course you'd have a motorcycle go. I don't even know if the mic picked that up.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, okay. But one of the kind of like big things that like I've noticed, so there is a bunch of like, you'll see Kickstarter and now Kickstarter, even with the video games, just the same as board games, is like there's sometimes where you'll have those like stories of people invest money and then you never get nothing. One board game that came out, so it was a very, very ambitious project called Kingdom Death Monster. And I only know about it because I heard about it on a podcast. Mind you, this was way after they did the original Kickstarter. But essentially what Kingdom Death Monster is it's a board game where you are creating a village. So you'll have your things that you'll build up to try and like, you know, you can have, if you have certain people, like you can breed them and then build up the population of your village, and you can do upgrades to the village and technology for the village and things like that. The meat and potatoes of the game is at a certain point, you and the other several villages, because each person plays their own village, go on a monster hunt, because supposedly in this world of Kingdom Death Monsters, there's these monsters that, you know, patrol around, and these villages, like, it's almost as if like mankind got kind of almost completely eradicated, and now the villages are starting to come back because these monsters essentially killed off most of humanity. So then the whole thing is it's supposed to have like a model, a plastic model of the monster that you're fighting. And then the game turns into, okay, we're going to attack this monster. And like based on how you attack it, where you attack it from, this and that, you can do damage, you don't do damage, this and that. So a big bulk of the game then comes from you attacking it. It's kind of the best description I kind of heard of is it's like kind of like Monster Hunter, but in a board game format. So if you manage, because that's the other thing is you don't always kill the monster. You can kill off all the villains because you have to dedicate. Like I'm gonna send out 3 people to go fight the monster, and vice versa. Like everybody picks. If you do kill the monster, then you get to basically like break it down, and then you randomly draw loot. So like it was funny because like in the podcast that I listened to, which is called The Secret Cabal, which is a phenomenal board gaming podcast. If you ever want to like get a good idea on some games and stuff, highly suggest you subscribe to them. But he talks about how like it was so funny because like they sat there and they like started cutting up this monster and he's drawing from this thing. He's like, and I ended up getting the monster's intestines and his gonads. And he's just like pauses and everyone starts giggling. And he's like, yes, I did say his gonads, which is funny because when I took it back to my village, it actually helped me that I could actually breed more people because of the whole like I was now more fertile because I had the monster gonads and I fed it to my people and all. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's hilarious. But he goes into like further the story of the Kickstarter of Kingdom Death Monster because he was like, I remember when I first kickstarted this 4 years ago. He's like, I went because he's like, they had a kind of like entry level, hey, it's $100 to get the base game, or for $400, you get the base game plus this like 1 or 2 expansions plus all the Kickstarter goals. He's like, so I basically went all in for $400. He's like, the thing about it is he's like, you know, this is the thing about Kickstarters. When you do Kickstarter, sometimes you basically have to put that money in as if like, I'm paying this money, I'm not expecting to get anything out of it. He's like, if you go that way into Kickstarter, you'll be fine. But if you think like, oh, I'm going to give this $400, like they need to give me something, don't do it. He's like, dude, he's like, it got to a point where like, right after the Kickstarter, they were getting like a bunch of updates from the developer. He's like, and slowly but surely, they started slowing down. And what went from an update every 2 weeks to an update of once a month to an update once every 2 months to an update once every 4 months. And then he's like literally went to radio silence for like a good 8 months. And he was like, so much so of the radio silence, he's like, I completely forgot I had put this money into this game. And after like an 8 to 9 month hiatus, he gets an email of like, oh, I just don't, you know, he's like, I don't want you guys to think like we're not doing anything. Dude, I'm on point. To give you like sound edits here. He's like, not to make you guys think that we've completely forgotten about this game. Like we're still working on it. And like apparently what the whole thing is he was working, I guess, with one miniatures company to like come out with the miniatures, and then something fell through. So then he had to go find a completely other miniatures company. And part of the problem is like he had already started investing this money in this first miniatures company. So now like he had to basically now switch gears. And this guy like apparently put of his own like kind of like money because he's like, I don't want this to like just disappear and be a failure, into this new company and worked it out. And this guy says, lo and behold, one day he's like, he gets a package on his doorway. And he's like, when I tell you I got a package, he's like, I got this huge box. I had no clue what it is. Weighed 35 pounds. He's like, and I pulled it in and opened it up. And lo and behold, here's Kingdom Death Monster with all this stuff. And he's like, no, that you did. He's like, I didn't make a verbal mistake. It was 35 pounds. And then the only other thing like I knew about it is like they were coming out with a second edition of Kingdom Death Monster. And yeah, if you wanted to go all in, it was like an insane like $470 or something like that. And I was just like, you'll never get me to pay that much for a game. But it's interesting because they don't sell this game in a local game store. Like you can only get it through Kickstarter. Just like there is a game, a really good game called Seventh Continent, which I got lucky and they like reopened it for a small time, the Kickstarter for it, so I was able to get it. Only Kickstarter only. Why? Because it's just a bunch of cards, and the guy, he basically like put out when they did their first Kickstarter campaign, like, hey, I'm only doing this in Kickstarter because doing only Kickstarter is the only way that I can make it viable to make money off of this. He's like, if I were to make extra copies and put it on a shelf, it would actually, I would be losing money doing it. Which apparently, after also he did this little window that he opened it up, he said like they're apparently opening up an online store. So I think he's gotten the cost down enough that you could want a copy and he can actually order and have them print a copy and then you get that. And the idea of the game I hear is it's almost like a choose your own adventure type of, if you remember those old books, it's kind of like that in a board game format. So like you have the cards and then you can choose which way you go, and each arrow tells you like a number, and that's the card that sits next to the one that you're at, and then you flip it over and it has flavor text in a book that you could read like what you see and what you do. What has made this game has piqued my interest to people that have played it and whatnot is you can play, and the campaigns can go anywhere from like a half hour up to like a couple of hours. But the way this guy designed the game is it comes with kind of pad, and now with the new version, it actually has like a little fake leather journal that has spots for the cards. You can actually say, okay, I want to like quit right here. You can basically capture where you are. You can take those cards and put them organized in a way that you can come back to it at another time, lay everything out and go, okay, let's continue from where we were. So they actually have a save game feature, which is amazing. But yeah, it's interesting to see just the difference between board games and video games when it comes to that, like development cycles, which I know we just went on a huge rant with me talking about Gloomhaven and Scythe. But it amazes me just like the biggest draw for me to board games is the fact that in a video game like Monster Hunter World, I can pick it up. And that's a game, like it's a bad example of a game because you can technically play it for hundreds of hours if you really want to. But you're eventually going to get to a point where you're going to hit, like you've done everything that you can do in that one storyline before they have to keep drip feeding you DLC. Like God of War for PS4. You can pretty much play through the story up to a certain point. You can only go so far before you've unlocked all the unlockables. What I like about a board game is, A, I can buy it. I'm going to pay the same amount of money as I got from that one video game, but it's something that I can continually play over and over and over and over and over again with same friends, different friends, and all that, and we'll continue to have a good time. And I think that's part of what's helped the whole board game industry like become this like new renaissance of the board game, because it's like, oh, I can spend $60 on this video game that I'll get 8 hours of entertainment out of it, or I can spend $60 on this board game that me and my friends can play for like 200 hours. Like weigh out what your cost to enjoyment is on that.
And the thing is that everyone there, when you bring someone that's new, because I remember I went over to a friend's house, and he had a bunch of board games that he had played tons of. He knew all the ins and outs, but I knew nothing about the game, and he had fun just introducing me to a game.
Mhm.
Where with gamers, it's half and half. Sometimes you have the gamers that it's like, oh sure, I'll show you this game here, and they're into it because you're brand new. And then you have others that's like, man, I don't have time to teach you or show you all this. Go watch some YouTube videos. So that's a good distinction between tabletop and video game itself.
And I think like the thing about it is that what's cool about introducing new people to it is You never know how they're going to think out and what strategy they're going to think out. Like,
Yeah.
it's like the old Warcraft and StarCraft games. I could have 100 hours in the game and think like, you know what? I'm going to wipe the floor with whoever. And I can introduce you to the game, and you come in and you pull off a trick that I've never seen anybody do. And you smack me down. And I'm going to be like, what in the world did he do? It's the same thing with board games. Same thing with board games. Which is what's great about it. Like, that was one of the things that I used to love when I lived in Western Mass with my old landlord. Is his fun was, I like to like, dude, he was like the chess gamer. So he would look at a game and be like, all right, for me, this is my optimal move to score the most amount of points. I'm going to do this. What are you, like, based on what I'm doing, what do I think you're going to do? Oh, you're probably going to do this, so I may want to do. So he would play out this whole, like, thing in his head, just like chess. And I'd sit there and I'd go, all right, I need to do this. And I would do it. And he would look at me and go, are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yeah. And I could just see the gears in his mind, just like, what in the world is he doing? Like, why did he do that? Why didn't he do this? My fun was just outthinking him in that sense. Because then I'd get to my end goal of what I was going with that. And he'd like, oh, like I could see, he's just like, dang, I didn't even think of that. And that was my fun with playing against him. Like, I almost knew I had that feeling like I'm more than likely not going to win. But you know what? The fact that I can outthink him on something, that's my fun.